Kamal Nath is the latest Congress leader to have praised the BJP and said that the party needs to learn something from the incumbent. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our political analysis today focuses on how Rahul Gandhi is in London and nobody quite knows which constituency he's addressing as he continues to lash out at the BJP from shores abroad. This is in a week when Hardik Patel and Sunil Jakhar are two congressmen who have walked out of the party. Hardik Patel, in an interview to Mojo Story, called himself a Gujarat working president without any work. And Sunil Jakhar took broad swipes at Rahul Gandhi, saying, "Aapko aapke chaplus Mubarak." This at a time when a new survey shows that the popularity of the Prime Minister and the BJP remains intact. Rahul Gandhi abroad, Navjot Singh Sidhu in jail, and the great resignations continue from the Congress party. What do we make of it? Is it time for a new national opposition? And from which debris can it arise and emerge, if at all? Let's introduce our guest on the program today. Author and analyst Gurcharan is with us. We're also joined by Congress member and spokesperson Sujata. Welcome to the program. Also joining us is one of our foremost psephologists and political analysts, Sanjay Kumar of the CSDS, and Dr. Sanjay, author, editor, and someone who has been an advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh in UPA1 is with us. We're hoping Dilip Cherian will be with us very soon as well. Let me start by getting first comments from everybody. Gurcharan, let me start with you. You know, even those who do not like the Congress party believe that a healthy democracy needs a national opposition. We are today a country effectively without one. What is this? What does this tell us? And when you juxtapose it with the extreme denialism of the Congress party, where its main leader is in fact in London addressing, we're not quite sure which constituency. You know, is it time to call it curtains for the Congress, or is it never say never in politics?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, Congress is in a state of coma, oblivion, and yet we all agree that India needs an all India, pan India opposition, not just the state oppositions that we have today. And it's easy to say that it's time for the Congress to say goodbye, but we have to remember that Congress matters because of its 20% vote share. Even at the state of decline that it was, it got 20% in the last national election. And no other regional party or parties together could get such a share. So I think it is easy to say, yes, that it's time for Congress to for us for Congress to say goodbye, or for us to say goodbye to the Congress. And it is also the belief that some people have expressed that the death of Congress, which is um, like a tunnel of darkness, in other words, for Indian polity, but it that it could open up space for a new kind of politics, a new kind
Yeah.
of opposition, younger people with the idealism of a different kind, looking ahead rather than looking backwards. And frankly, the lessons from Hardik Patel's departure are not new. He has complained about the top-down culture that Indira Gandhi brought to the Congress and still persists. A nomination culture, he called it. And clearly, we all know that the right thing is to have internal elections. But Hardik keeps the message from Hardik, which was important, but also it's true for other leaders, that there is a glass ceiling for young leaders in the Congress party. So, what the lessons from Udaipur,
Yeah.
that Congress is supposed to have, you know, thought reflected upon. Sonia proposed that the Congress should reinvent itself, but the reality is that it has tried to reinvent itself all the time. I mean, they tried the soft Hindutva approach. They tried throwing Priyanka into the campaign. They tried the lurching to the hard left through the anti-Ambani rhetoric. They tried younger leaders, and Hardik Patel was the latest to quit. They tried the anti-corruption mode, Chokidar Chor Hai. None of these have worked. So
Yeah.
it is, I'm afraid there is no answer except to say that really, we all are very cynical about a split. Last time I was on the show, I talked about a palace revolt. You might remember. Now,
Yes.
the fact is that splits in the Congress have actually had a positive effect. There was during Nehru's time, the left wing of the of in the Congress, they broke away. Um,
And,
then
and, and, and let me just jump in here because I remember what you said, and I guess the question today is, can only a mutiny save the Congress from itself? And that is the key question that we must ask on this program. And Hardik Patel, whom you reference, has one of the things he said in his interview to me is, not every Congress person who leaves the party is either bika hua or dara hua. Not every Congress person who's walking out is for sale or fearful. And we'll play that clip out in just a moment. But let me get Sanjay Kumar, who I see is back with us. Sanjay ji, let me ask you to do the math for us. And mathematically, the point has been made repeatedly that there is no national opposition possible without the Congress party, even if all the regional parties were to come together. But if the Congress ends up losing a couple of more states, which is all which is all that it approximately has left anymore, and you do have Prashant Kishore now forecasting a rout in both Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh, would that theory still hold that there is no national opposition possible to the BJP without the Congress in terms of vote share at least? Sanjay Kumar?
See, vote share, yes, but the vote share is so scattered that the vote share are not converting into seats for the Congress. So that up till 2024, even if Congress loses all the states before 2024 Lok Sabha election, and that is likely to happen, Congress might end up winning just a couple of states before the 2024 Lok Sabha election. But I would still say that before 2024 election or till 2024 election, this will still hold true that there is no national opposition to BJP except Congress, because I don't see any regional party. Regional parties are very strong in their own state. We have different regional parties strong in, say, Trinamool very strong in West Bengal. Similarly, Aam Aadmi Party very strong in Punjab and Delhi, and we can keep taking names of various other political parties. But none of these political parties is in a position to mobilize support base in in large number of states. So Congress will still be seen as a national opposition to the BJP. But the problem is that this national opposition to BJP would remain very weak, maybe weaker than it was in 2019 election. So it will still, theoretically, it will still be the main opponent to BJP at the national level. But this opposition would have become much weaker in 2024 compared to what we have seen in 2020.
But you're saying that until the next general election, the Congress would have to be, in a sense, the key pivot for a national opposition to the BJP, even now, even given the state of the Congress.
No, I'm not saying that it has to be, but given that no other regional party has a presence in large number of states, so people would look at Congress as the national alternative, because in large number of states. Why I'm saying that? Because in large number of states, it will be the Congress which will be opposing the BJP, whether it is Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, and we can take names of few other states. So these are the states where a third player or a fourth player may take entry before 2024 Lok Sabha election. But still, the contest in all these states will be between BJP and Congress, and that is why it would be still seen as that Congress is the main opponent to BJP, because Congress would be opposing BJP, or Congress would be in contest with BJP in at least 6 or 7 states.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Baru now. And here's the point, Sanjay. the Congress, or at least the Gandhis, have clearly decided they don't care about the optics. If you look at this week, Sunil Jakhar walks out, Hardik Patel walks out, Navjot Singh Sidhu walks into prison, and Rahul Gandhi goes to London to make a all too familiar speech by now about all that is wrong with the BJP. Who is he addressing? Why is he in London? I don't have a problem that he's in London. I just don't get it. I mean, it's like leaving your house while it's burning. And yes, you want to get out of the house so you're not burnt yourself, but you don't just abandon your people. You don't just leave everybody behind in that burning house. Dr. Bhatt.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't make too much of his being in London this week. It looks like he was there with several other people, including Sitaram Yechuri, for some kind of a conference, some ideas for India conference. Yeah. It's okay. I mean, he can go for London for a few days. His not going to London would not have prevented Sunil Jakhar's exit or Sidhu's arrest or Hardik Patel's exit, right? I mean, I don't think that would have been. The point really is he engaged on a full-time basis with the revitalization of the party? And I think a lot of us have been arguing that has not been the case. Now, after looking at the recent Chintan Shivir, I think what we have seen essentially is a consolidation of Rahul Gandhi within the party, because the G23 had kind of questioned Rahul Gandhi's leadership of the party. And I think the effort over the last few months, culminating in the Chintan Shivir or whatever it is called in Rajasthan, is the final consolidation of the transition from the mother to the son. Now it is very clear that will happen. And in between, if he goes out to London, I don't think that's a big deal. But when he comes back, we are going to be presented with a Congress under the leadership of Rahul Gandhi. Take it or leave it, that's our offer. And for all other political parties that are interested in building a relationship with the Congress party, it is this Congress they have to deal with. In some ways, that's exactly the gauntlet that Sonia Gandhi threw down in 1998 by taking over the party and told everybody else, if you want to work with the Congress, work with me. And many of them chose to do. The DMK, for example, chose to work with Sonia Gandhi, and so did the communists, etc. So, she succeeded in fact, becoming the anchor of a new coalition called the United Progressive Alliance. And the question now going forward is whether Rahul Gandhi can succeed becoming the anchor of a new coalition, and whether other regional parties will be willing to work with the Congress. I think that's a story in the making. From state to state, the answer to that question will differ. And then what happens this year, what happens next year, will finally determine the shape of.
But Dr. Baru, before I go to Sujata of the Congress party and to Dilip Cherian, can I ask you whether you believe that the Congress, there are many people, also in politics, for example, Yogendra Yadav, who believe that the Congress needs to die or split for something new to emerge in the political space. Do you think this is just khali pulao that academics make up for wargaming and number crunching hypothetically, or do you think a few more defeats could actually split this party?
Well, two things. One, the Congress is not going to die. It has to be killed. In other words, what happened in 1969? Indira Gandhi took charge. She fought with the conservative leadership of her party, split the party, and led the Congress back to power. So that's the way politics goes. Nobody simply voluntarily retires. Only people like me decide to retire. Everybody doesn't voluntarily retire.
As if you've retired, but go on. Yeah.
So no, Congress is not going to retire on its own. It will have to be taken on, and then either it goes forward or it just simply collapses. But on the second question of the numbers, the significance of numbers, I agree with Sanjay Kumar. 20% is scattered across the country. It's not a consolidated big vote that is there for conversion into seats. How that 20% plays out depends very much on the kind of relationships that the Congress builds with other political parties. Converting that 20% at the national level into seats state by state by state will require working with other political parties. I mean, take, for example, Telangana, where I'm now sitting in Hyderabad. Will the Congress work with KCR against the BJP, or will there be a three-way contest? That will determine the outcome in Telangana. So this will happen state by state.
Yeah. Let me bring in Sujata now. I think it's quite clear, and we all agree that this is going to be a Rahul Gandhi version of the Congress. And, he almost made that clear from stage in Udaipur when he spoke about the senior leaders of the party who sometimes got depressed, and he kind of made a small joke about it. What do you think the Rahul Gandhi version of the Congress will look like? Because nobody quite knows. We know what he doesn't like. We know that he rejects a certain kind of generation of politicians within his own party. But for you as a young leader, a colleague of Mr. Gandhi, what are the changes you're looking for or hoping for?
As far as Mr. Rahul Gandhi is concerned, he is a leader who who is not only holding people like us together, but who's also getting people like us to have the hope that we can save the country under him. We are joining the Congress not because of only the ideology that we believe in, but because we see a leader who believes in that ideology and is taking that ideology forward. And when he talks about everything that is wrong with this government, I find that he's the only person in this country, only leader in this country who is not thinking about how to save his skin, how to save his seat, but fighting for the country. If you remember what happened in 2020, when he spoke about Corona coming, when he spoke about the economy going southward, it was only one person, and that was Rahul Gandhi. This country needs people who can guide, who can support the poor, and who can lead the country forward. Of course, in a situation like it is today, we find that everything has been compromised, everything is controlled by the governments. And today, instead of ensuring that the government makes people more aware, talks about education, it is talking about issues which are different and which are not really relevant to.
But Sujata, here's the point. Like maybe, as a congresswoman, you're right that Rahul Gandhi's ideology appeals to you, but it has to appeal to the voter. It has to appeal to people
Definitely,
more than his party mates, right?
you're absolutely correct, and that will happen only when the party is working full force with people, is connected to people. And I do agree that there are certain transitions which are happening within the party, and Rahul Gandhi does not he does not consider the older generation as defunct or not important, or because he considers that their experience as very important. And we've seen that in Uttarakhand, where Harish Rawat ji was given the due importance, even though he thought that he wasn't being given. So now
Yeah.
he wants more people to come
I
in.
don't
He
know.
wants to energize.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. I know Uttarakhand is your state, but Harish Rawat said to me on record that he repeatedly told the Congress that we need a chief ministerial face going into this election, and that did not happen. So I'm not sure if Mr. Rawat is the best example. But hold on. One of the things you've said, Dilip, let me take it to Dilip Cherian. People who like Rahul Gandhi say this again and again. He's the only one who hasn't diluted his ideology. Every other sort of non-BJP leader has. And Mr. Gandhi made the same speech from Udaipur saying, we stand for an ideology the regional parties do not. The regional parties were then up in arms. Of course, I would nudge everybody to look at Maharashtra, where the Congress is in alliance with the Shiv Sena, a party that spent the last couple of weeks fighting with the BJP over who actually should get credit, in their words, for the Babri Masjid demolition. So are we not making too much of the Congress being distinctive in ideology? In fact, I think Jaipal Reddy once described the Congress as the first sort of formal coalition of multiple ideas. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it. Dr. Baru would remember it more accurately. But Dilip, ideology, is that enough to win votes, and is the ideology even distinctive anymore? Dilip, can you hear me? Dilip, you're on mute. Dilip, you're on mute. You need to unmute yourself. Okay, I don't think Dilip can hear me. Let me take the same question to Dr. Baru. Does I? Yeah, I can. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Dilip. No, Dilip.
Is muting me each time.
Dilip, you're not.
Congress.
Yeah.
Congress needs to understand that Udaipur is a watershed movement. If if the decisions taken in Udaipur can be implemented, you are talking about the possibility of a new party emerging out of the current situation. Will they take those hard decisions? Some hard decisions have been announced, but time and time again, we've seen that these hard decisions don't translate into what I call CEO decisions and implementation. That's the first problem. The second problem is what I would call keeping the flock together. You may think that many of the people who are leaving are not consequential to the future of the Congress. The fact is that in the aggregate, they mean a lot. So, what is happening is that the Congress is bleeding from a million cuts. And that is not a party that is strong enough to achieve its objective, which is electoral victory, whosoever the enemy may be. And number three, I think that they're making a major mistake in terms of misreading who is the enemy. They have to recognize that the enemy is not the regional parties, which is what they seem to be most scared about.
Yeah. You talk about tough announcement from Udaipur, but I don't know whether the tough announcements even took place. I think, for example, the one family, one ticket then came with a string of caveats, which sort of undid it at inception. But one of the important things that's being said is, those who are leaving, they should not all be treated as treacherous or fearful. Before I go around the panel again, I just want to play out what Hardik Patel had to say about this. Hardik Patel making the point that those who leave are not all bika hua or dara hua. Listen in.
सवाल इतना है कि मेरी उम्र 28 साल है, मैं हर दिन 300-400 किलोमीटर की यात्रा करता रहता हूँ, गाड़ी से इधर से उधर लोगों के बीच जाते। एक बात से तो मैं सहमत हूँ कि राजनीति करनी है तो 24 घंटा करनी चाहिए। राजनीति में आए हो तो लोगों से लगातार मिलना पड़ता है, राजनीति में आए हो तो लोगों से बातचीत करनी पड़ती है। अगर राजनीति में आए हो तो सामने वाला आपसे क्या उम्मीद रखता है, आपसे क्यों नाराज है, उसका क्लेरिफिकेशन उसके साथ बैठ के करना पड़ेगा। और मेरा यही मानना है कि तभी हम स्वाभाविक रूप से जो लोग नाराज है उसकी नाराजगी को हम समझ पाएंगे। बरखा जी, मैं बहुत कम लोगों से ये बात कह चुका हूँ, आपसे ये कह रहा हूँ कि आपको छोड़ के या आपसे नाराज जो भी लोग है वो आपसे दूर जा रहा है, उसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि वो बिक गया या वो खरीद गया, वो डर गया। हमें झांकना अपने आप में पड़ेगा कि हमारी ऐसी क्या गलती है कि लगातार लोग हमसे छोड़ के जा रहे हैं या हमसे नाराज होते जा रहे हैं। गुजरात की बात करते हैं अपन, मैं गुजरात की पॉलिटिक्स से जुड़ा हुआ ज्यादा तो गुजरात की बात करता हूँ। पिछले 5 साल के भीतर 20 एमएलए चले गए हैं, 17 पूर्व एमएलए चले गए हैं, पार्टी की सेकंड और थर्ड लीडरशिप के 100 से अधिक नेता चले गए हैं। तो अगर आप ये बोलेंगे कि ये सब बिक गए हैं, ये सब खरीद गए हैं, ये सब डर गए, तो नहीं, शायद हमारी भी कुछ गलती हो सकती है, हमें समझना पड़ेगा।
Right. So those who leave are not all for sale, and I think that's the point, Dilip, that you were also making, that there's a wrong identification of enemies. Even Sunil Jakhar, in fact, before joining the BJP, made the same point. Let me bring in Sanjay Baru first. Let me bring in Sanjay Baru on this interesting point about ideology. Constantly, the one thing that is said in defense of the Congress by its supporters is it's the only party that hasn't compromised on ideology. Is that really the case? And does it matter?
No, you see, first of all, Congress was never seen as a party defined by ideology. I mean, we go back all the way to Rajni Kothari's characterization of the party as an umbrella party. It meant all things to all people. It was an umbrella that accommodated multiple interests and sometimes contradictory interests. That was actually the strength of the Congress, not its weakness. And therefore, this constant search for some kind of an ideology, which is, old bee in the bonnet for Rahul. I remember about 10, 15 years ago, Rahul Gandhi going to JNU and trying to pretend he was now left of center and giving a speech there that kind of tried to appeal to the left. Then he went to the CII meeting where Montek was sitting in the front row and criticized all the economic policies that were associated with Montek. So he went through this left phase, maybe under inspiration from my friend Sitaram. But the point is, it's not turning left, turning right. Those are not the lessons for the Congress today to learn from Indira Gandhi. Indira Gandhi, when she turned left, did it in such an emphatic manner that she actually virtually took the entire left onto her side because the left was powerful in 69. Today, that is not going to work for the Congress. The Congress has to actually build bridges.
And
Put
actually, Indira, I don't know if you'd agree with me, but Indira Gandhi turned left on the economy and right on national security, which is in some ways what Prime Minister Modi does as well with his very targeted microeconomic
yes,
schemes.
yes,
And
yes. Yes,
you
and
know,
as Dilip has said, the political parties that the Congress has today to reach out to are the regional parties. They
yeah.
they are the ones that will form the. I mean, after all, they were their allies in the UPA, DMK, Lalu, Sharad Pawar. All these were Congress allies,
Yeah.
and
And I'll ask Sanjay Kumar to do the math for us in terms of whether the Congress needs to stop fighting the regional parties at a state level for opposition to emerge. But Gurcharan, I know you were wanting to come in there, so go ahead. Hardik Patel making that point, which I found you nodding in agreement with. Do go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to all that address 3 points that have been raised in your discussion just now. One is the question of ideology, and the second is the question of leadership. Now, I think Sujata made an impassioned defense of Rahul, and I think he is. I mean, from my recollections and knowing him, he is a sincere person. He is much more intelligent than he's given credit for. He has always shown concern for the national good and what India should be like. Unfortunately, he lacks what is central to leadership. In leadership requires will, it requires determination. That's what differentiated Indira Gandhi. She succeeded not because of ideology, she succeeded because of that willpower. When I talk to companies, the CEOs of companies, this is the lesson that fundamentally a CEO has to bring to the table. And unfortunately, Rahul is lacking there. He is not hungry for that job. You have to be hungry. That man, Hardik said 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's the kind of willpower you need. So
Yeah.
that is one point. The second point is about alliances. I think, frankly, if I were one of the persons in the regional parties, I would be very wary how the Congress has treated its alliance partners. I would frankly be very, unless they undergo a huge transformation, uh,
Yeah.
nobody wants to have an alliance with the Congress party.
And I want Sanjay Kumar, I hope your line remains stable through that reply, to do the math for us. If you look at Telangana, where Dr. Baru is sitting, for example, one of the sort of points of irritation when the Congress was negotiating with Prashant Kishore was how can you be, supping with the TRS and wanting to join us? I would make a somewhat different argument. Why should the Congress be contesting states where another non-BJP party is stronger? What should be the Congress priority right now? And if you were to break down the math for us, Sanjay Kumarji, then you would be able to tell us, can the Congress afford to be fighting these regional parties anymore? Because where the BJP does the best, as we know, is where it is in direct competition with the Congress.
No, I think, Barkha, the answer is very simple. Wherever BJP is facing the challenge is in the states where regional parties are very strong, whether it is Tamil Nadu, Andhra, West Bengal, Telangana. We can keep taking names of large number of states where regional parties are very strong and BJP have still not been able to make the kind of inroads BJP would like to make inroads. There are some states where they've started making their presence felt. But the where BJP scores very high, or the strike rate of BJP is very high, is in those states where BJP is in direct contest with the Congress. So I think there is a time. It is time for Congress to sit, think carefully that in those states where regional parties are strong, BJP is BJP is contesting elections in those states. They should leave the space for the regional party and should allow regional party, like, very simple. Congress shouldn't have no business to contest any seat in, say, West Bengal, same
Yeah.
situation with more or less. It has turned out to be the same situation in say Bihar or UP or in Andhra. But the difficulty is that if you club all these states together or the seats together, then it amounts to a very large number of seats. And then within the Congress party, this is the unease that if you're not contesting for X number of seats, which would be roughly about 200, 250 seats, then how do we claim ourselves to be a national party? Remember, like we keep talking about 200 odd seats where BJP is in direct contest with Congress. But if you look at these are not 200 seats now. If you look at the vote percentages, Congress vote percentage of 35% plus is only in 140 constituencies now, going by 2019 Lok Sabha results. And even in a large number of these seats are from Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat. And in many of these seats, even though Congress is holding 35% plus vote share, but in many seats, BJP has got 50% plus seats. So, in real situation, Congress presence is only in 140 seats now, 140 Lok Sabha seats. But remember, the situation is much worse. Even in these 140 seats, there are only, I think, 60, 70, 80 seats where Congress has really a sizable number of votes. In rest other 70 constituencies, Congress is sitting with say 35, 37, 38% vote. But BJP is leading over Congress by 10, 12, 14, 15% vote. So really,
Yeah.
really difficult time for the Congress.
And I guess the challenge for the Congress is now this, that it should be preserving its meager or declining resources, its diminishing returns, and focusing on very very targeted contests. Sanjay ji, and those numbers that you shared are fascinating. But the curious thing is that Rahul Gandhi was asked in London about lessons that could be learned from the BJP, something that Kamal Nath spoke about, and I'll play that clip in just a second. But Sujata, if you want to respond to this, that why fight in states where you don't have a chance in hell? Why fight in West Bengal? If the TRS is in the winning position in Telangana, why not let it be there and concentrate your energy somewhere else? And I know the dilemma. The dilemma is, how do you then grow a party? But you've got to pick your battles, right, Sujata?
First and most importantly, I see you playing this thing about Rahul Gandhi going to in London. I don't think that has any relevance. So, that is my objection to that statement which has been put out. Now, coming to why Congress party needs to contest elections, and yes, Congress party needs to contest elections. If we can have alliances, great. But explain to me, in Uttar Pradesh, you know very well that when Priyanka Gandhi came up with "Ladki Hoon Lad Sakti Hoon," the entire media attention went to that particular campaign of ours. And after that, and at that particular time, the narrative was that if the Congress party gets any eyeballs, then Akhilesh Yadav will lose. If you remember, this was what was being said. And then after that campaign, immediately we saw that the Samajwadi Party started getting more attention in the media also, and everything turned into Hindu Muslim, because the Congress party, and I don't agree that the Congress party does not have an ideology. The Congress party the ideology of the Congress party is the constitution of this country. The ideology of the Congress party are the people and their welfare of this country, and we believe that we are a welfare state. We understand that our responsibility is towards people, and we have people everywhere across the country. So we can't
But
let them down by saying,
you just heard Sanjay Kumar doing the math for you, and that the Congress is now, relevant in 140 odd seats. And if you break the data down further, then the numbers are even more dire. But I take your point as a Congress person who,
one more point.
yeah.
One more point to Sanjay ji. Sanjay ji, I think you should also mention about Uttarakhand, which might be a very, very small state where 20 lakh votes, is what the Congress party got. And that was much more than what we got earlier. And BJP got much lesser, even though they got 23 lakhs. Look at the difference. So
It's the
as
first
far as
past the post system. It's a first past the post system. You can't change the system that we
No, that's all right. But we are
elections
talking
by,
about
right?
people. We are
Okay.
talking about people,
Oh,
right? We have to be
all right.
responsible towards them.
Okay, let me bring in Dilip Cherian, and then we'll take last comments after that. Dilip, you said there were some tough decisions that need to be executed that the Congress did indicate in Udaipur. Can you give us an instance of such a tough decision that could bring actual change?
I just name one of them, and that is the decision to have those who have been DPCC presidents for over a certain period of time being replaced. If you go across the country, and Sanjay, I'm sure, will vouch for this, the fact is that many of the the district Congress presidents have been in position for between 10 to 20 years. Now, if the party's demise has been presided over at the grassroots level by people who haven't been changed and who haven't been elected except by a small coterie of people, then that is one of the problems which I think is going to be addressed. If they have the guts to actually implement this, then you will see a sea change in the way the Congress party's structure across the country exists. So I'm saying this is one of the decisions which perhaps went largely unnoticed, but hopefully this will yield some results. And hopefully Rahul Gandhi will inherit then a new set of people who have the willingness, need, and desire to be able to rejuvenate the party from the roots.
Okay, I have only a few minutes left, but before I take last comments, the intriguing thing is that more and more Congress leaders are now talking about learning from the BJP. Hardik Patel said this, and it was just a few days before he then walked out. Now, Kamal Nath is talking about learning some critical lessons from the BJP. Mr. Gandhi was asked about whether the Congress cadre could be more like the BJP cadre in London, and this is what he said.
People tell us that we should have a cadre like the BJP. And I tell them, the day we have a cadre like the BJP, we will be the BJP. We are a mass party. We are a party that listens to the expression of the Indian people. We have an organizational structure, but it is nowhere near the organizational structure of the BJP, and it should never ever be. Because please realize, what the BJP does is shout and stifle voices. What we do is listen. They're two different things, they're two different designs. Right? A cadre is designed to stifle the voice. A cadre is told, you will say this and you will say nothing else. And Yachuriji is looking at me in a strange way. But it's designed to push a particular set of ideas down people's throats. Whether in his system it's the communist idea, or in the RSS system it's true, right? We're not designed like that. We are designed to listen to the people of India and pull out their voice and place it on the table, right? And we have an opportunity now that we haven't had for many years to completely redesign the Congress through mass action.
And the operative word there, and I'll start with Dr. Sanjay Baru, is redesign the Congress. So if there was any ambiguity that Rahul Gandhi is seeking to do that, I think he made that pretty clear. He's also correct that historically there isn't a kind of narrow dogma that defines the Congress, and therefore Rajni Kothari's Congress system, the phrase he gave to all of us students of politics. But what do you make of that comment that we don't need a cadre, we don't need an organizational structure like either the left or the right?
Well, first of all, Barkha, I see your colleagues running a line quoting me saying Congress will not die, it has to be killed. That's not what I said. I said that no political party dies. It can only be killed. Right?
We'll correct that.
An opposition has to emerge that is capable of it. So that's what I meant. I don't want anybody to kill the Congress party. The point is that, look, these are all glib words. I mean, frankly, I know this party inside out. I know this party very, very well. I'm sitting here in a place in Hyderabad where I've seen the party for the last 50 years. And I know the guys who are still there today. They are not reflecting the voice of anybody, either hearing or talking. They are all waiting for a line from Delhi. The minute an instruction comes, they implement. That's been the culture of the party. It's been top down always. The culture of the Congress is same as culture of the BJP. It's top down. Madam says, Madam's henchmen say, High Command says, we will do. And I'm now telling you what I hear at the bottom of the pyramid. You know,
Yeah.
so it's not a party that actually has the ear to the ground, listening to the people, reacting to them. No, and that is actually where you need the cadre. I mean, that is where the cadre can either be suppressing people or actually representing people. And the cadre doesn't exist. That's the whole problem. I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't understand. I'm mystified as to why Gurcharan, he wanted to come in. Why that would be a virtue? Why is Mr. Gandhi? I get what he's saying, that we are not a centrally dictated ideological party, but you're still centrally dictated, Gurcharan.
Well, exactly. I think that the irony of this is that he says we are listening to the people. That was his whole message. We are good at listening to the people, unlike our competitor. Well, the best way to Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, the best way to listen to the people is to have internal elections and let them vote as who should be the leader of the party, what should be the ideology of the party. That is called listening to the people.
Yeah,
So
I don't even know if that will solve it, because I doubt that anyone will run seriously against Mr. Gandhi. Sujata, do you want to come in on that?
You
You're on
know,
mute.
this is really, disheartening that Rahul Gandhi in 2019 resigned from the post of the president, and yet we target him. Sometimes I blame my party people for not defending him enough, that he is the one who resigned, and he said, no, you please get somebody else, I refuse to get onto that post again. But we have to target him. As far as Rahul Gandhi is concerned, he's right. You know what he means when he talks about we are not a cadre based party. I have seen the politics of West Bengal very closely, and I know what it is like. The cadres simply shift from one party to another, and there is rampant killing happening after elections, during elections, and it just goes on. But when you talk about the Congress party and the BJP, there is a huge amount of difference. We are weak at the organizational level. We are working on that, and you will see the difference. But what is the difference? The difference is that we listened. The organization is supposed to listen to people. We are not supposed to go and meet people every day and impress our thoughts on those people. That is what the BJP does. I have a whole lot of BJP friends, who come to me, who meet me, they'll over a cup of tea, and all that they're doing is talking about how the country can change with the BJP coming into power. The BJP wants this, the BJP wants that, and they really don't know what they're saying, because it's only WhatsApp forwards that they tell us about. And as far as the Congress party is concerned, we want people to be aware, we want people to be able to make their choices. But yes, we are weak at the organizational level, and that is why we are not being able to listen to people enough.
I just want to give two quick last words to Dilip and Sanjay. Kumar. Dilip, I'll start with you. How is it a virtue to not have a powerful, well-oiled machinery like the BJP, the left to a lesser extent now? Dilip, can you hear me?
It's a disaster. It's a disaster not to have a well-oiled machinery. Let me tell you that politics is all about the machinery to reach the people, and at election time to make your voters get to the booth. So all this talk of being at the pinnacle of ideological thinking, of defending the country and its constitution, is absolutely vapid and invalid unless it translates into people who can carry a vibrant message, a message which resonates in people's hearts and then their minds. So you first have to appeal to the hearts. And I think that can only happen with leaders who have the ability to speak directly to them in their tongue. So you need a variety of regional leaders, and you need to make sure that at the time of elections, you have enough of a machinery to make people come, and those who want to vote for you and make that possible. Those are the only two secrets of political success as far as parties are concerned.
Sanjay Kumar, the last word to you. Would you, looking at the numbers, if you hypothetically were advising someone from the Congress, would you say you need to actually stop making political opponents of the regional parties and really cherry pick the states that you fight in?
Yes, if collectively there is a will to challenge Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister, BJP as a very dominant political party. But if there is no will that, all these political parties are just contesting election for the sake of contesting election, not sincere for defeating BJP, then they should keep contesting. Then Congress is free to contest elections in West Bengal, Andhra, Telangana, wherever they want, and they would keep getting, they might end up with 30-40 seats again in 2024 Lok Sabha election. But if the effort is to bring down BJP, if not from the power, but at least bring down the seats of BJP, then you need to have a coordination, and in that coordination, Congress need to give a lot of space to regional party. And as I said, there would be large number of states where Congress doesn't need to contest elections at all.
Yeah, well, that will that you speak about, it doesn't seem clear at all. In fact, Rahul Gandhi, when he talks about redesigning Dr. Baru, seems to be talking of a long haul project. Dr. Baru, quick last word, yeah.
Quick last word. I want to compliment Sujata Paul for standing her ground against a male-dominated panel. All of us seem to be so critical. My compliments to her.
This is true. Thank you, Sujata, and thank you, everybody, Gurcharan, Dilip, and the two Sanjays. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and see you soon. Goodbye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.